Survivor 46 is here, and so is On Fire, the only official Survivor podcast, and we have a twist this season. The winner of Survivor 45, Dee Valladares, will be joining us every week.
We're going behind the scenes of the biggest moments, the how and the why things happen, and the strategy and analysis you can only get from someone like me, a Survivor winner.
Listen to On Fire, the official Survivor podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
Getting engaged is a moment worth cherishing. A one-of-a-kind ring that you design at Blue Nile can help your love sparkle. Just choose your diamond and setting. When you've found the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Finding the right engagement ring can be nerve-wracking. At Blue Nile, you'll have the expert guidance needed and a diamond guarantee that ensures you're getting the highest quality at the best price. Cherish all of life's moments and save up to 30% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
Salah. Escape Cancelo. Oh, it's brilliant from Mo Salah. And still, Salah. Oh, sensational! Son had a goal and scored a beauty.
Oh, what a strike from Yuri Tielemans.
De Bruyne. That is what Martinelli fortress. Still going up. Oh, he's done it again.
And City have won the Premier League.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, EPL Index proudly brings to you the best prediction podcast in the world, A Tad Predictable, with your host, Tariwa Chanakira, and his guest, Jake Jackman.
It's GameWeek 28, and you know what that means. It's time for another brand new episode of A Tad Predictable. The champ is here. Well, defending champion. We'll see if he'll be back-to-back champion, trying to emulate something that Man City have been doing in quite a few years, this era of the Premier League. But we are joined by defending champion of Bank It or Burn It, Jake Jackman. Jake, welcome back onto the show.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. They say it's always tough just to go again, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, see, when you're the champ, you've got a target on your back, and obviously it's not been done before on A Tad Predictable podcast, at least not that I'm aware of, for someone to go back to back with Bank It or Burn It. So, are you feeling any sort of pressure?
No pressures for tyres.
Fair enough, short and sweet. That answers that. But yeah, we will do Bank It or Burn It a bit later on in the show with Jake Jackman. But we've got a whole host of fixtures to get through. Obviously, the first 5 games that will be relevant for you when it comes to Bank It or Burn It. But before we get on to that, Jake, I just wanted your thoughts on, I guess, the controversy that is the Liverpool game this past weekend with that stoppage in play, whether or not they should have given the ball to Nottingham Forest, and then obviously Liverpool scoring in the 99th minute, I believe, of extra time. Did you have any hot takes on that, or was everything cool for you?
I don't know. I think that the ball should have been given to Nottingham Forest, and it was a mistake made. 2 minutes is a long time in football, so who knows what would have happened, but as ever with chaos theory, one thing we know is Darwin Núñez wouldn't have scored that goal if the ball had been given to Nottingham Forest. That's a fact, because everything would have been different. Not to say that Liverpool wouldn't have scored another way; they very, very, very well could have done. But I can see why Nottingham Forest are getting frustrated. I can also see why Liverpool fans are saying, "Well, it's 2 minutes; it's quite a long time." But also, it's not like it was 10 minutes later. 2 minutes is still not that. Yeah, so it's frustrating for Forest, and I think it's not the first time they've had a dodgy referee decision. So I think the outcry is not so much about this one. It's sort of a bigger thing at play there.
Yeah, I think that's sort of been the running theme in the Premier League this season, is the conversations after games are usually about the referees rather than the players that are playing or the coaches and stuff like that. We want to be talking about the football, not talking about the controversy. But Nottingham Forest obviously went and hired Clattenburg to be their sort of referee liaison official. I don't know what his official title is with regards to that. Does this then justify them hiring him, them having a decision like this just to highlight, as you've said, it's not the first time they've been on the wrong end of a decision?
Yeah, I guess it doesn't. I guess it does in some ways. At least he's actually had to do something to earn the money he's getting. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure it's a position that football clubs need, but there we go. He's got some money, he's got some airtime. So, yeah, good for him, I guess.
It's a fascinating hire from my perspective. Look, if you can get it, you can get it. You know, if you can get that kind of gig, great for him. But from my perspective, I don't see the point in having someone like that. I don't see what influence he's going to have over referees. And it almost felt like them announcing they're going to pursue legal action was almost like him trying to justify why they're paying him, to be like, yeah, we're definitely going to pursue this. I don't know, maybe he'll be the expert witness. We will see what happens there. But let's move on to the fixtures for this coming weekend. We've got a 12:30 kickoff, Jake. It's not a Liverpool 12:30 kickoff, but I think Klopp's complaints with regards to that were more to do with Liverpool getting that 12:30 kickoff straight after international breaks. Well, Man United don't have long, if you're speaking in Premier League terms, to try and rectify what happened in their last game. They had that loss in the Manchester derby. They'll be entertaining Everton. It's going to be an expected Old Trafford, Jake, with two sides who are having seasons that neither of them probably were expecting to have, whether that's naive or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's been tricky for Everton. They've obviously had a lot of off-field problems. And Manchester United, they had a sort of upturn in form at the start of the year, but it did seem to be sort of form built on false foundations. They weren't really playing well. They were still conceding a lot of chances. So it's not overly surprising that they've, had a couple of dodgy results recently. But yeah, it's a really tough game to call because you would think Manchester United would be favourites at home. They're normally more reliable at Old Trafford. But saying that, Everton are a tricky team to break down. They don't concede many chances. And they do have the types of players that can cause Manchester United problems. And I think definitely physically as well will be big this weekend. So it is a really difficult game to call. Manchester United are going to be rightful favourites, as they should be for a game like this. But I don't know. I feel like Everton can get something. I just feel I'm not totally backing Eric Ten Hag. I think everybody expects him to lose his job at some point in the next 5 to 6 months. So it's difficult to, and if that's going to happen, there's going to be some more, disappointing results along the way. So I think I'm going to tip a draw here, 1-1. I'm not going to tip Everton to win because I think it's difficult on their recent form. But I think they're a better team than they've shown. And I think that this is going to be a good opportunity for them to get something on the board.
Jake, they continue to struggle in front of goal. They end up missing a penalty in this game. I'm okay with how they're looking defensively. I think that should be enough for them to stay up this season. And I know we had a little bit of a discussion about this, if I can throw a cheap plug in here now, on the EPL roundtable with Kev De Vries. You and myself were both panelists on that show this past weekend. And I was saying on that show how Everton look fine defensively. The shape of the team looks good. Yes, they're creating chances, but they don't seem to have a lethal player in that team, whether it's someone from out wide or up front. I mean, they're 1-0 up in the game. Obviously, Better gets the header. They could have gone 2-0 up if Dwight McNeil was able to finish off his chance, and that probably seals the game off for them. So as long as they struggle in front of goal, I'm struggling to give them wins against some of the bigger teams. I just don't know if they can stave off sort of what I'm expecting to be an onslaught from Man United, albeit as poor as Man United have been this season. I still think they've got enough at Old Trafford to go and get the win here. I'm going to go with 2-1 to Man United. But what are your thoughts on sort of the malaise at Everton from an attacking standpoint?
I don't know. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin just desperately needs a goal. I still think he's got quality, but it just hasn't gone in for him yet, which is disappointing. So yeah, I'd still be pretty confident in him once he gets his form back around. But yeah, they don't have a lot else apart from Calvert-Lewin. You'd probably say Decore is probably the best finisher at the club,
Yeah.
which is a little bit worrying considering he came to England as a sort of defensive midfielder. But yeah, I wouldn't be overly worried. I think they'll find goals. I think Burnley always struggled for goals under Sean Dyche, and you know they get goals from across the team. I know the centre backs chip in. Brantwaite's got a couple recently. I think even Mikolenko sort of got a couple this season. So they seem to just spread the goals out. And I think general like finishing patterns, like you say Everton are a poor finishing team. I think that's pretty accepted now. But these such poor runs of finishing, they're so rare. And at some point it will turn. Even if that turn isn't to get back to the average, it's just to improve a bit. It will turn at some point. So I think their defence is good enough to ensure they stay up. But yeah, I'm sure they'll find some goal. I can't believe that Calvert-Lewin's going to continue on this sort of poor run of form till the end of the season. At some point, he'll get a couple. It might only be 3 or 4, but those 3 or 4 could be the sort of decisive moments in Everton's season.
That's something that Everton fans will be hoping to see, if not more than that. Let's move on to Bournemouth versus Sheffield United. But before we discuss this game, obviously some housekeeping here. Jake, I know there's 2 Bournemouth games in this week. The second one obviously is them entertaining Luton, so they've got back-to-back home games, but we're not going to discuss that second fixture on this podcast. Amelia is going to join us next week, and she's going to be discussing that Wednesday game with us. I think we're recording either Monday or Tuesday, so that will be out in time for that game to sort of preview it. But let's talk about Bournemouth in this game against Sheffield United. I mean, you got to feel sorry for Sheffield United fans. Home games seem to be about 20 minutes in and they're almost leaving the stadium, if not have left the stadium by then. They had the 5-0 defeat against Brighton not too long ago. I think it was 5-0 against Aston Villa, the previous one. And then a 2-2 draw back in January is the last time they got something respectable, I guess you can say, at home from the Blades. Unfortunate to come up against Arsenal in the form that Arsenal are in at the moment, and certainly the statement Arsenal's been trying to make, a 6-0 defeat at home for them. How do they recover in time for a game against Bournemouth, who looked, I guess, Burnley were in the game, which is something that Burnley can't say too much of in recent games, unfortunately for them. But Bournemouth saw the game out. They got the win there. They obviously want to keep putting distance between themselves and the relegation zone. I can see them doing that in this, so I can see another 2-0 here.
Yeah, I think that's a good prediction. I think Bournemouth, aside from a really good run of form, I think it was around November, they haven't picked up loads of points. It's been a lot of draws, but they haven't won a lot of games. They obviously got that win last weekend, which was important. And I think this sort of fixture run that they've got now is probably going to be enough to sort of see them pull far clear of that relegation battle. Obviously got Sheffield United, they've got Luton, as you say. So, yeah, it's a good little run for the 2 home games as well. You'd expect this to be a really good week for Bournemouth. But they did lose to Leicester last week in the Cup. Probably a similar level of opposition. Maybe a little bit better, because when you've got that winning feeling, your teams tend to play better with a little bit of momentum. But it does show that they're still susceptible to losing games where you perhaps consider them to be the stronger team. But yeah, I think that you're right. I think 2-0 is a good scoreline. I think Sheffield United are a little bit better away from home, and I don't know why that is. But yeah, it's really difficult to back them in any game, and it's difficult to back them to sort of lose by 1 goal. So yeah, I think 2-0 is a very good prediction here. And yeah, I'd expect Bournemouth to win fairly comfortably.
Definitely. Let's move on to Crystal Palace versus Luton. For Crystal Palace, they, I guess, started the game okay against Spurs on the weekend. I thought they were fashioning some chances looked like they could be a threat on the counter-attack against Spurs. It was just whether or not they could keep them out. They take the lead with the brilliant Eze free kick where he goes goalkeeper's side, but then I don't know what happened from there. They seem to just crumble. A lot of the goals they conceded were errors from their own players leading to those goals, especially that first one, which is obviously quite crucial. You don't want to be doing that and giving Spurs a sniff, but that they might not face the same level of pressure from an attacking standpoint as they did against Spurs, but Luton have shown this season that they will still come at you and will have a right go at you. Do you see Crystal Palace faring a bit better in this game against Luton? Obviously, Luton had to come back from 2 goals down to get to 2-2 before, unfortunately, having that late winner against them in that Aston Villa game.
Yeah, this is a really tricky game to call because I thought Crystal Palace, although they won their first game under Glasner, they weren't very good, and a red card for Burnley did sort of mean that Crystal Palace really couldn't not win that game. And then last week they did well at Spurs, but they conceded lots of chances. They're definitely tired. I think we're going to see for the rest of the season, Crystal Palace concede a lot of late goals, and a team that you don't really want to come up and play that like that against is Luton because they're just so chaotic and so 100 miles per hour for the entire game that I think this is a big week for Luton. I think they've got away against Crystal Palace and Bournemouth. You'd expect them to lose both of those games based on, being away from home and sort of the strength of the two teams. You'd say that Crystal Palace have got better players, as do Bournemouth, but Luton really need to be getting points out of these 2 games. I think 3 points would be a good return. I think anything less than that, it's going to make it really difficult for them, I think. They just need to start getting points on the board again. So, they're going to go out and attack both these games. They don't have another way of playing. I think they know that they're only going to stay up by playing this positive football, and I think that could lead to quite a chaotic game at Palace. And I just think that fitness level and that just more understanding of the style of play could play into Luton's hands a little bit. So I'm going to tip them to win this. I think they're going to go to Palace and win. And I think Palace maybe take the lead, and then maybe it's late goals from Luton that get them the win. But I'm going to go 2-1 to Luton. I think they're going to start their week strong and go into that Bournemouth game with some sort of momentum.
It would definitely make that Bournemouth game a lot more interesting, in my opinion. But more so, it would make the relegation battle interesting because we know Crystal Palace, they're hovering above the relegation zone. Are they on that sort of threshold of teams that you're looking at that could be sucked into that relegation zone, especially if they're losing to Luton? You'd put Luton on 23 points, 5 points away from Crystal Palace with a game in hand on them.
Maybe. I think that the appointment of Glasner is going to get them more points than they would have got under Broy. And I think with Elise coming back, as they get back to full fitness, other players come back from injury, I think they'll have enough to stay up. But I think there could be some pain along the way as they try and transition styles. It's not the perfect time to be doing this. You'd like to be doing this in a pre-season, not mid-season. And we've seen how teams have struggled with that switch mid-season. But yeah, I think they'll have more than enough to stay up. But yeah, I think it's not going to be an easy finish. And I think that there will be some doubts about the managerial change at points, but they'll have enough quality and they'll stay up.
Interesting. From my end, for this game, just to tie this one up, I've got 1-1 score on this one. I'm sitting on the fence a bit here. I think it's going to be quite a physical game, I don't know if Adebayo is going to be back for this one, and that probably gives me some pause for concern for Luton. Obviously, we've seen them scoring goals without him in recent weeks, but I still think he's so key to them and probably would cause Crystal Palace's defense a lot more issues than what they do have up front. So yeah, I'm going to go with the conservative 1-1 in this one. Jake, the next team that's coming up, you're obviously quite familiar with, having played them this past weekend. What did you make of Wolves' performance at St. James's Park, and how do you think they fare against a Fulham side that seem to be scoring goals in abundance at the moment?
Difficult one with Wolves. I think they just had one injury too many at the weekend. they did play some good football in points, but they never really looked that threatening. I don't think they created a single big chance. And considering the rate Newcastle be conceding big chances this year, that's probably a little bit worried. But I think Newcastle sort of respected them. We sat deep. We sort of played on the counter-attack a little bit more and paid that respect to Wolves. And I think they had more possession. I don't think they've won a game where they've had more possession this season. So that's a bit of a worrying trend. And it'll be interesting to see how Fulham approach this, because I think Fulham are a team that like to have the ball, especially recently. Although being a home day for Wolves, it's difficult. I think the possession is going to be a big one this weekend. I can see Fulham dominating the ball, and that might play to Wolves' strength. It's difficult to give a prediction because Neto went off injured last week. Obviously, Hwang looks like he's ruled out. Still got Cunha out. Jose Sarr went off at half time as well. So I don't know what's happening with those injuries. So if all of those are out, it's difficult to back Wolves. I think they've got quite a thin squad. And to lose Neto, Hwang, and Cunha is massive, and the goalkeeper as well. So I think I think even in the games Fulham have won, like last week, they still conceded a lot of chances to Brighton. I think the sort of scoreline flattered Fulham to an extent, but they do seem to have found something, in Munoz up front. He's doing well, and him and Wilson seem to have a good partnership. So yeah, I think I'm gonna sit on the fence here and go 1-1. I'd probably give Wolves the win if I knew they had players back. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think the injuries is probably what a lot of people are going to be worrying about when it comes from Wolves' perspective. I've gone a 1-0 Fulham win. I think the injuries are going to be too much for Wolves to overcome Fulham in this game. I like what Fulham are doing at the moment. I like how clinical they've been, taking their chances. Obviously, slightly more clinical in the Brighton game than in the Man United game, where I thought they did allow Man United into that game in a game that they could have just killed off quite quickly. But they sort of did that against Fulham, and we were hoping to do the same against Wolves. And I think looking back at the end of the season, this will be considered quite a good win, considering the players that Wolves have to come back and how strong they could become once they have all their players in place. But let's move on to obviously, speaking of teams that are hard, teams that are playing well, teams that are clinical at the moment, Arsenal were rampant on Monday night, Jake. 6-0 against Sheffield United. They seem to be the team in the Premier League at the moment. They will be hosting Brentford. Obviously, they know their two closest title rivals in Liverpool and Man City will be playing each other on the weekend, so they could take points off of each other. This could be a great situation for Arsenal to go be as dominant as they've been in recent weeks, put their feet up and watch a game without a care in the world, knowing that they're sitting in a very good position.
Yeah, they're definitely in a good position. They obviously won the game with relative ease yesterday. And yeah, they're scoring goals for fun, and the fixture list has sort of worked out well for them. They've had a lot of easier games. And yeah, if they can beat Brentford, they can sort of go into that break, without a game if they're not in the FA Cup. Then the international break and really focus on that City game. So yeah, it's a big opportunity for them. It's difficult to see them dropping points at home at the moment. They were so good against Newcastle. We played them a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, I just don't think they're going to show any missteps against the sort of lesser teams as they did last season. So yeah, I'm pretty confident that they'll win this game. Brentford were good against Chelsea. They showed some fighting spirit, but I think that, yeah, they struggled to sort of see that game out, and Arsenal are 2-3 steps above Chelsea at the moment. So yeah, I think it's going to be quite a routine win at home for Arsenal. Their defence is so solid. I can't see them conceding many chances at own goals in this game. So yeah, I think I'm going to go a comfortable 3-0 Arsenal win.
3-0 to Arsenal there. Jake, do you have any concerns? Maybe if I can indulge you here and ask you to put an Arsenal fan's hat on, would there be any concerns that the team is peaking too soon?
I don't think so. No, I think that this is the time to find form. You know, we're in March. There's only a couple more months to go in the season. They don't have any. They're not in any of the competitions. Still in the Champions League, but
That
I
could
think
change
so.
this week.
It could change. It could, but no, I don't think that they're peaking too soon. I think this is the time to peak. You want to building up that head of steam, and looking like you're an unbeatable force, especially against those lesser teams. Like if there's any chinks in the armor, those teams that are sort of fighting at the bottom of the table will be more positive. But you sort of going with a defeatist attitude, and I think they lacked that last season. They showed vulnerabilities, and teams attacked them. And felt like they could get some from Arsenal. I don't think that's the case this year. And I think they're going to find a lot of ease in these lesser fixtures. And we've seen, they beat Liverpool recently. But they could easily beat Manchester City at the moment. I'd still put them as third favourites to win the Premier League. But I think that their case is getting stronger by the week.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Yeah, I've gone 3-1 in this one. I saw something from Brentford in that game. I don't think I saw enough from them against Chelsea to warrant them getting, any more than, maybe a consolation goal against this Arsenal side that might be feeling a bit leggy after Champions League endeavours. But yeah, I think Arsenal will have enough. It's at home at the Emirates Stadium. They're looking really, really impressive all the way through the team. They've got some players coming back from injury as well, which is, I guess, always good for a team. So yeah, they look like the team to beat at the moment. For me, even looking at the table at the moment, they sit in third place with 61 points. Above them is Manchester City with 62. Liverpool has 63. But, if there's a draw in that game, in that Liverpool-Man City game, Arsenal go top of the league, if I'm not mistaken. If we take into account goal difference, they certainly are smashing that at the moment. So they go top of the league, and then it's theirs to lose pretty much, knowing that they face Manchester City, etc., heading into the tail end of the season. But yeah, interesting times, an exciting three-way Premier League title race at the moment. Obviously, we'll get to Aston Villa in a little bit, but maybe it might be a stretch to put them into the title race. I hope I'm not being disparaging for them, but it seems like the form of the other teams is going to continue. We'll see. We'll see when we get to that Aston Villa game. Obviously, they play Spurs, who could have something to say about whether Aston Villa do maintain that title race that they've been on the fringes, but been in nonetheless. Jake, we're going to take a short break, get you to gather your thoughts ahead of Bank It or Burn It. As we said, your first effort coming back after winning it last season. We'll see whether or not you can retain your title. But before we do that, I just want to implore you guys to hook up with Liberty Shield, which is a VPN provider. They are the sponsors of this podcast in association with EPLindex.com. Liberty Shield is very easy to use, easy to install, and has a whole lot of features. It can be used on multiple devices, whether you're traveling and don't want to get locked out of your bank account, or you want to stay safe while using public Wi-Fi. If you want to unlock geo-locked content or just want to protect your online data, then Liberty Shield is definitely for you. My favorite use of Liberty Shield is simply unlocking content. Being able to watch shows that are locked to Netflix in the US or in other countries is always a favorite of mine. Putting yourself in a different place. You can use it, as I said, for stuff like Netflix or unlocking geo-locked films. We know not all the EPL games are shown on TV here in the UK, if you are listening from the UK. And Liberty Shield is a great way to be able to still watch every single EPL game. And we thank them for sponsoring this show. But Jake, I'll let you gather your thoughts. We'll be right back with our guests after this short break.
I'm Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm Jason Kelly.
From Bloomberg, this is The Deal. Each week, you'll hear us in conversation with business icons.
This show will explore deal-making across sports, media, and entertainment.
That is a harsh lesson in business.
Sports is not as simple as bringing a bunch of big names together.
I didn't want to do another stomp you out speech.
It opened up so many more doors.
The show is called The Deal.
Listen to The Deal.
Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
Hey there. Did you know Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Kroger app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Kroger today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
All right, we are back. Jake, bank it or burn it. Do you have a pre-match speech for yourself, or you just want to get cracking?
I just want to get cracking.
No wasting time. No wasting time for Jake Jackman here. Guys, I'm going to put 15 seconds on the clock. Jake is going to try and answer all 5 questions in each of the 5 rounds. Obviously, if he thinks a scenario is going to happen, he's going to shout bank it. If it thinks a scenario is not going to happen, he's going to shout burn it. The games he's going to be, obviously, that are relevant for him: Man United, Everton, Bournemouth, Sheffield United, Crystal Palace, Luton, Wolves versus Fulham, and Arsenal versus Brentford. As we've discussed in our first 5 fixtures here, your questions are: A, possession over 55% to the home team; B, over 8 shots on target; C, over 20 tackles; D, headed goal; and E, knee slide goal celebration. All right, I'll put the 15 seconds on the clock. Man United versus Everton. Your time starts now. Possession over 55% to the home team.
Bank it.
Over 8 shots on target.
Bank it.
Over 20 tackles.
Burn it.
Headed goal.
Burn it.
Knee slide goal celebration.
Bank it.
Oh, all right. I know you famously, I don't know if it was your first effort of bank it or burn it, Jake, in history, where you didn't get one of your answers in time, and obviously your score ended up being out of 24. Do you remember those days before you were a champion, I guess?
Yeah, back when I was slogging it. But yeah, I think if I remember, the questions are off slowly. Well, blaming you as well.
Of course, blame the host. All right, fair enough. All right, let's move on to Bournemouth versus Sheffield United. Your time starts now. Possession over 55% to the home team.
Bank it.
Over 8 shots on target.
Burn it.
Over 20 tackles.
Burn it.
Headed goal.
Bank it.
Knee slide goal celebration.
Bank it.
Just in time. You look, I was firing them off there. I think it's a you problem. I don't think. How dare you come onto my show and try and put me under the bus here for you not getting all of your questions right on your first ever bank it or burn it.
We got them in time there, though. Just using the time. They need to. Just using the clock.
All right. Well, Liverpool will argue they were using the clock in their game against Nottingham Forest. But anyway, let's move on to Crystal Palace versus Luton. Your time.
I think there's some time wasting going on your part to sort of hinder them.
All right, we'll add some time. Crystal Palace versus Luton. Your time starts now. Possession over 55% to the home team.
Bank it.
Over 8 shots on target.
Bank it.
Over 20 tackles.
Bank it.
Headed goal.
Burn it.
Knee slide goal celebration.
Bank it.
Ooh. I was not expecting that, I won't lie. In a game, I believe you predicted 2-1. I guess so. 3 opportunities for a knee slide to happen. Okay. I get the logic. I think
it's going to be a lot of knee slides. I think it's a good weekend for them because it's going to be wet. You know, it's going to play to the knee slides. So I'm going for a full docket of knee slides, goal celebrations.
All right. You see, this is what champions do. They research. They look into those small little details, those fine prints that separates you from the rest of the pack. I like that. The weather forecast ahead of a bank it or burn it session. Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. Let's see. Wolves versus Fulham. Your time starts now. Possession of 55% to the home team.
Burn it.
Over 8 shots on target.
Burn it.
Over 20 tackles.
Burn it.
Headed goal.
Bank it.
Knee slide goal celebration.
Bank it.
All right. Did I even need to ask? Look, I think the Arsenal games, I'm going to make a petition that Arsenal games aren't on Bank It or Burn It because, I mean, they're scoring at least 5 goals in every game. Chances are the celebration is going to hit, whatever celebration it is. You're getting 5 chances. It's just ridiculous, in my opinion.
It's an interesting thing for you to campaign against something that you set up.
Hey,
you choose the games.
Hey. Look here. It's one to talk about. I'm definitely going to talk to executive producer Guy Drinkle. We'll see. We'll pitch it to the suits upstairs. I want to boycott the Arsenal games because I think it's getting ridiculous. Arsenal versus Brentford. All right. If you don't get 5 out of 5 for this one, Jake, I'm going to be disappointed in you. But let's see how you get on. All right. Your time starts now. Possession of 55% to the home team.
Bank it.
Over 8 shots on target.
Bank it.
And over 20 tackles.
Bank it.
Header goal.
Bank it.
Knee slide goal celebration.
Bank it.
Of course, a full round of bank it. So that's going to be the game to watch. Make sure to see if Jake gets 5 out of 5 for that one. Is that the one you're most confident in?
I'm just showboating. I know that you like a full round of bank it. I'm playing to the crowd. I'm just playing to the crowd now.
Oh, look at that. This is what happened.
This is my first attempt this season.
This is what happened.
Showboating early on. I'll take it seriously later in the season when I know what I'm aiming at.
Ladies and gentlemen, Usain Bolt has joined our podcast. Look at this. In the early rounds, before he gets to the final, he's jogging through Bank It or Burn It. Not even, I mean, apart from the weather, I'm questioning whether or not he took this seriously, actually, but we will see. But Jake, let's move on to the rest of the fixtures. We've got Aston Villa versus Spurs here. I mentioned Spurs earlier. They were shaky, in my opinion, against Crystal Palace. A lot shakier than I expected them to be. They had 2 weeks off. I assumed they were going to come into that game hot, well-drilled, well-coached. I mean, I have to say, obviously, Werner had that chance early on to maybe score, but it's Werner on a one-on-one situation. I know Chelsea fans are all too familiar with that situation where he doesn't finish off those chances as often you'd expect him to be. But they come up against a Villa side who they're not going to mess around. Like if Spurs don't come correct in this game, I think Villa are going to put them to the sword. Yeah,
maybe. I think that the thing that sort of plays to Tottenham's advantage is that Villa do have a Europa League game in the week, or a conference game, should I say. So that probably does play into the hands of Tottenham. We've got a full week to rest, can fully focus on this game. I think Villa's home form has been a little bit sketchy. Lost to Manchester United and Newcastle recently, so it's far from a done deal. That the home form, they once looked impenetrable. Now it doesn't quite seem the case. I thought against Luton they were lucky to get that late winner. I thought Luton were good value for a point. Just the game, the extra days that Tottenham have got, and sort of the high intensity style they play. Son coming back and sort of getting back to scoring ways. I think I'm going to tip Tottenham here. I think I'm going to go 2-1 Tottenham. I think the fitness advantage is going to pay, and we know with Tottenham that they're one of the fittest teams in the league. That the amount of goals they scored late just shows that. So yeah, I think I'm going to tip Tottenham. I think that Villa, Brighton, and West Ham are all going to see their Premier League form dip a little bit now that they're back in European competition. And yeah, I can see Tottenham winning this weekend.
Yeah, that European football is a great shot in terms of squad depth. Whether or not they can handle that, we will see. From a Villa perspective, Spurs, 1 game a week for the rest of the season. They've got Premier League to focus on and trying to get up as high as they possibly can. Low-key game of the weekend. I know you've got a game that you might throw into the hat there. We've got that Liverpool-Man City game, the biggest game of the weekend. But could this one be game of the weekend in terms of it's two teams that like to attack? We know they both like to have a high line, Jake. Is this game just going to be played at the halfway line?
Yeah, it could be. It could be a really good game to watch. I think maybe I've been a little bit neutral on my score, and maybe I should have backed a few more goals. But yeah, I think that it could be a good game to watch. And maybe the Man City Liverpool game is going to be the better game that we'll come on to. But yeah, they both will be really good watches.
Don't you worry about the goals. I've covered us both in this one. I've gone a 3-3 draw in that Aston Villa versus Spurs game. I think both teams are all out attack. Yes, in different ways and different manners of play, but I do expect this to be a game filled with goals. I'm not too confident with Spurs being able to handle Watkins and Bailey and their movement. I know they've got effectively the cheat code that is Van der Ven in terms of balls in behind. I'm not expecting Watkins to necessarily run away from him, but what I am expecting is patterns of play from Aston Villa that are going to cause Spurs a lot of problems on the counter-attack. We know Villa sometimes can press quite high up. Spurs like to play from the back, and they've been making some unforced errors, in my opinion, playing out of the back and have not been punished as well as they could be. And we've seen Villa punish some teams that have tried to play out the back. So I can see a goal, maybe a 2 coming from that type of situation. And then from a Spurs side, they only know one speed, which is just go and try and attack, which is going to make for an exciting game. I don't think Spurs know how to control games. Again, we'll come to Newcastle, and maybe that's one of those topics that we will discuss when it comes to Newcastle and being able to control games. But Spurs is one of those teams that struggle to control games, and it just ends up being high-scoring games if both teams are up for it. So yeah, I think maybe this game could upstage the Liverpool-Man City game if that one ends up becoming a cagey game between two teams that are scared to lose the game. But we will see when we get there. Let's move on to Brighton versus Nottingham Forest. Jake, Brighton, talk to me about De Zerbi. He can't seem to string 2 wins in a row this season, let alone 2 good performances, in my opinion. Well, I'd say this season. I mean, more specifically, the second half of the season. Obviously, first half of the season, they had European football as well. But this was probably the patch that they were hoping to pick up as many points as possible, just to give themselves breathing room when it does come to those European games. Sort of like what Aston Villa have done. You know, Aston Villa are now in a comfortable position in that top 4 spot, and obviously European football kicks in now. Brighton, they're in 9th. Probably, maybe we're hoping for something a bit better, certainly from a performance standpoint. 39 points though, they're safe. They're not going down. So it's not like they've got issues from that front, but consistency, man. They need to find some sort of consistency. And equally, in terms of consistency, I think Nottingham Forest are playing well, in my opinion. They're just not getting results that maybe some of their play deserves of late. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, I think I touched on it a little bit earlier. I thought that Brighton might see a little bit of decline in their league form, even more than it has been. I think they're going to really throw their eggs into that Europa League basket and really attack that Roma game, who have improved recently. So that's going to be a really tough game for them. So, yeah, they might sort of rest things up and go a little bit easier against Forest. And we've seen with Forest recently, they were unlucky to lose 1-0 against Liverpool and Manchester United in successive games across different competitions. Created chances in both of them that just needed that clinical edge, and you just feel that there are going to be some big days for them. And Brighton really struggle when they come up against a team that sit deep and give them the ball and to say to them, look, try and break us down. And when they do that, they leave spaces and they're really vulnerable to counter-attack teams. We've seen Everton do it last season, and again a couple of weekends ago, nearly go and beat Brighton away. And Forest have got the tools to really take advantage of those weaknesses. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult game for Brighton. You'd say that they should be beating Forest at home, but I just think Forest are set up, especially under Nuno, that they're solid at the back now. they can counter. They've got Gibbs White, who's so good in transition. They've got Elanga, Aroni, Hudson-Odoi, all quick players on the break. So yeah, I think I'm gonna tip Forest to win. I want to go 2-1 to Forest. I think they might finally sort of get some rewards and get a big result on the board.
You stole my scoreline. I've got 2-1 as well, so I'm going to maintain it. We'll both go with 2-1 to Nottingham Forest on this one. Yeah, I think this game is shaping up well for Nottingham Forest and their style of play and what Brighton bring to things with their heavy possession football. And as you've summed it up perfectly, they're going to be trying to break them down. They're going to be left exposed defensively. We know their defensive woes so far this season. I mean, it's I don't know if I can say at the beginning of the season, I would have expected them to have conceded 44 goals by now in the season. They took forever to get that clean sheet earlier in the season. So yeah, defending has not been great for them this season. I don't expect them to have fixed it by this weekend, especially against a team that's going to be tailor-made to counter-attack them and try and pick up a win away from home. And for Nottingham Forest, that will be huge. Gets them to 27 points. If results go their way this weekend, they could see themselves jumping up to 15th place. Still keeping, an eye on teams below them rather than teams above them. Just is the nature of where Luton sit at the moment with that game in hand, and we'll see what they can do with their 2 games this weekend. But let's move on to West Ham versus Burnley. Jake, for me, it's weird. It's one of those games, and I'm speaking Everton versus West Ham here, where if you look at the scoreline, you think, oh, West Ham must have run away with this game. But to me, Everton should have won that game. West Ham come into it late, sort of steal it, in my opinion. I wasn't impressed with their performance, despite them scoring 3 goals, which is always a weird thing to say. But they come up against Burnley, so could this be sort of just that momentum swing that West Ham needed? Getting that win against Everton by any means necessary. Obviously, the penalty save is huge. And then having, a game at home against Burnley, a struggling Burnley that's had 4 losses on the bounce. As I said, is this the right time for West Ham to sort of try and turn their season around? Obviously, European football as well, one of those teams.
Yeah, I think that there'll be another one that sort of want to go far in Europe. But yeah, they've got a good opportunity. It's a good fixture for them. Burnley have really showed nothing in the last few weeks. And yeah, it's difficult to get many more points at all this season. So you'd probably say West Ham are going to be the likely winners this weekend. With Paquetá back now, they do look a more fluent team in attack. So you'd have to back them this weekend. I think that, I can't see them finishing in that top 8 come the end of the season. I just think that Manchester United.
The Planet Fitness Black Card is packed with perks, not like other gyms.
Hi, can I bring a friend to work out? Oh, okay. Is my membership good at other locations? Okay. Do you have any other amenities?
But at Planet Fitness, the PF Black Card gets you tons of perks. Bring a friend for free anytime. Access to any of our 2,500 plus locations. Relax in the hydro massage and so much more. Join for just $1 down, $24.99 a month. Cancel anytime. Deal ends March 15th. See Home Club for details.
Brighton, Newcastle and Chelsea are all better teams. But yeah, I think that they'd be right to sort of target that Europa League and see how far they can go in that. But yeah, they've got a good chance in Premier League to sort of build some momentum, and you'd expect them to continue building that. They obviously beat Brentford quite convincingly, beat Everton last week a little bit fortuitously, but Ariel had a great game and they did very well in that, and they took their chances. And yeah, Kudus and Bowen and Paquetá in attack, they do have some really top quality attackers. So you think they'll have too much for Burnley. I think I'll go 2-0. I think they'll keep clean sheet, and yeah, 2-0.
2-0 there. I've gone 3-0 to West Ham. I think they're going to try and use this game as an opportunity to springboard themselves for the rest of the season, especially after what they did at Everton and getting a result. Try and get a couple of wins on the bounce and try and move forward in that way. For Burnley, I think it seems like it's all about next season now, getting the team geared up to try and jump back to the Premier League again, and then maybe in the second go try and stay up. But yeah, as you said, they've not shown enough so far this season, certainly not in recent weeks, to give their fans hope of staying up this season. I just think they are the second worst team in the Premier League. Sheffield United being the worst, and the league isn't lying from that perspective. I know that they're both on 13 points, but yeah, I think those are comfortably the two worst teams in the Premier League at the moment. Let's move on to what many will say is the game of the week, and maybe the game of the season, Jake. Liverpool versus Manchester City at Man United are clearly on my mind. Liverpool versus Man City at Anfield. I'll let you lead this one.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. The fact it's at Anfield really does give Liverpool a much better chance. I think City have shown some vulnerabilities in the last few weeks. Obviously, Manchester United, I don't think the Manchester United game was at all difficult, and the early goal was just sort of a shot from the blue, and the Manchester United really didn't offer anything. But games prior to that, Bournemouth caused them some problems. Brentford did too. They were only winning by the odd goal, so yeah, it's not been totally convincing. And Liverpool, it just feels like they're on a crest of a wave now. It's Klopp's last season. It just feels like everything is going for them. And yeah, we know the atmosphere is going to be incredible. There's rumours that Salah might be back, which would be good. Darwin obviously will be back, available to start. Szoboszlai too. So there's a lot of reasons to be positive for Liverpool. And yeah, I think it's going to be chaos. I think that there's going to be goals at both ends. I don't think it's going to be cagey. I don't think Klopp will want to set up and try and keep things tight. He'll know that their best chance of winning was to make it an aggressive game. City are so good in attack at the moment. Phil Foden's in the form of his life, and obviously Haaland can score any time. That he's obviously going to be. There's obviously going to be goals. So yeah, I think I'm going to set on the fence and go 2-2. But I just don't want to call it in favour of either team. So just sitting on the fence, but. Yeah, it does feel like something's building around Liverpool this season, and it wouldn't surprise me if it just goes if they were the winners. But yeah, I don't want to predict it. I'll go 2-2.
I think a lot of Liverpool fans are of the mindset that a draw is fine in this game as long as they don't lose to City. It will be a good result for them, and obviously there's a lot of talk of Liverpool probably have the easier fixtures of the three teams. If I bring in Arsenal into the conversation once again. So yeah, I don't think that would be a horrible result for Liverpool. I think they'll probably take that before kickoff, to be fair. I believe Liverpool need 3 goals to win this game, which is why I've predicted 3-2. I can definitely see Foden scoring in this one. He loves a goal in a big game. We know Haaland has been missing an insane amount of chances. If I'd said to you, Jake, obviously I know you're quite a well-researched, football pundit / journalist / Twitter enthusiast, if I can say. Jake, Darwin's Erling Haaland's missing more big chances than Darwin Núñez. Is that any cause for concern for him and City heading into the business end of the season? Obviously, football's a low-scoring game. When it starts getting to cup finals and those type of things, semi-finals, finals, the chances that he's missing at the moment could be the difference between them and trophies.
No, it's not. It's not anything to worry about. The best players in the world, the best strikers in the world, miss the most big chances because they get the most chances. So yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about that at all. It's like I'm not concerned about Darwin missing big chances. I'm not concerned about Erling Haaland missing big chances. It's just the way that football goes. The best strikers miss the most big chances. And yeah, you'll often see that across the board. And one of the things that makes a good striker is that you're prepared to miss those chances and then put yourself in the position to then miss them again. And that's why Haaland is the best going. And yeah, City create the most chances. We see him get, he has 3-4 chances a game. And sometimes he'll take all of them, sometimes he won't, but he'll keep getting in those positions. And, you could say that he's missed fewer than Darwin, but if anybody in the world had the opportunity to have Haaland or Darwin Núñez, I think even Liverpool fans would have Haaland. So, yeah, I'm not concerned. He's going to score goals. He literally scored 5 goals literally last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't be concerned. And in that Manchester United game, yes, he missed big chances, but then what did he go and do? He went and scored later in the game. You know, that just shows the caliber of player and the mentality he has.
Definitely, yeah. It should be an interesting one, and obviously, one that I will be watching with a keen eye. I think also, from a Liverpool perspective, you mentioned the fact of will a Salah be back, etc. Who else can they expect back? That's going to be interesting. They've got they've got Europa League game this coming week, and I think that's probably an opportunity for the likes of a Salah, maybe Szoboszlai, Núñez, to give them a bit more minutes to try and boost up their match fitness ahead of that Man City game. But if we don't see Salah in action in midweek, I think he might just end up being on the bench at best against City. I don't know if you throw him in straight into that game cold. I mean, it's Mohamed Salah. You can do whatever you want. But I think maybe there might be some caution there to not throw him in off the start if he doesn't feature in midweek. So one to keep an eye on from Liverpool's perspective. I think Kelleher is going to need to have the game of his life. He seems to be in insane form at the moment. And even having the game of his life, he's probably still going to concede 2 goals. Such is the attacking force that Man City are at the moment. I'm really looking forward to that game. I think it's going to be a good one. Let's move on to the last game that we'll be discussing. It's not the last game of this game week, but as I said, we'll discuss Bournemouth-Luton later on in the next episode. But for this week, the last game, Chelsea versus Newcastle, your team Newcastle, they off the back of that 3-0 win against Wolves. Probably a game that people were expecting to be a lot closer. I don't know if you thought that heading into that game against Wolves and then playing Chelsea. Is this a great time to be playing Chelsea? They seem quite unsure of themselves.
I'd probably say so. I feel like that the atmosphere could change at Stamford Bridge. It does feel like they're slowly turning on Poch, and if Newcastle got an early goal, I think it could be a very good night for us at Stamford Bridge. It's obviously going to be a tough game. Chelsea got good players. They can compete with anybody on their day. We saw that at City a few weeks ago. So yeah, I'm not entirely confident, but if we go there and play the same way we did against Wolves, set up a little bit deeper, make sure that there isn't those big gaps to exploit, play on the counter attack. You know, Chelsea will have a lot of the ball, but they'll be liable to quick counter attacks like last week with Brentford. And like Gordon's done so well in the big matches at home. He scored against all the traditional top 6 teams apart from Tottenham, who have not played there yet. So 5 out of 5, it's a very good record. He does well in these big matches. Isak looks like he's slowly getting back to good match fitness. Joe Willock being back is massive because it just adds legs to the midfield. And we played at Stamford Bridge earlier in the season, the Carabao Cup, and we were 1-0 up until nearly the very last kick of the game when Trippier sort of made an error that you just wouldn't expect from him. So, Chelsea probably wish they could go back and not score that goal so they don't have that embarrassment in the final and that line from Gary Neville. But there we go. On that day we sat deep and just let them attack us, and they only scored based on our mistakes. So we're going to go there with a stronger team this time. We're going to have more first team players available. We're going to be less fatigued. So yeah, if we can improve on that performance, I think we've got a good chance. I think I'm going to tip us to win. I'm going to go 2-1 to Newcastle. I think that we're going to get an early goal and get a second, and then maybe they'll get one later on. But to sort of add to my stress levels. But yeah, I think that this is a big chance for Newcastle. I think that the pressure's all on Chelsea here. Like we've got since the turn of the year. I think we've only lost to City and Arsenal. So some of the performances haven't been good. Like we're very lucky to score late goals against Luton and Bournemouth not to lose. But it showed the fighting spirit in the squad. We're getting players back. We've got a good level of form. We went away to Aston Villa and did very well. This is a similar sort of game. Yeah, I think I'm going to tip us. I'm going to go 2-1. And yeah, just hoping that we can sort of step up from that Wolves performance. And yeah, because we'll need to. But yeah, Chelsea haven't looked great at all. And I think they do better in the games where they're really not given much chance. Like I think the Carabao Cup final, they were quite good in the 90 minutes. City, they were good. But I think this one, there's going to be a little bit of expectancy in the crowd. They're going to think, if we're going to make a run for those European spots, this is a big opportunity. And hopefully we can play on that sort of fear in the crowd, get an early goal. And 2-1, I think, is my prediction.
I have 2-2 written down here, Jake, and maybe you can convince me to come to your side of things with a 2-1 here. My worry is I'm not seeing much control from Newcastle's midfield at the moment, and that's just going to invite Chelsea at home with the pressure of the crowd, jeering them to get forward, to go and get that second goal to draw the game. That's sort of where I'm leaning at the moment with the 2-2 draw, because I'm not sure when Newcastle have the lead, they can sort of put their foot on the ball at times when they need to, just to give their defense some breathing room.
Yeah, no, I can see why. You might say that. But yeah, I think there was big improvements they made last week. And yeah, I think that Willock being back is massive in helping to relieve that pressure. I think we're going to be a lot more balanced than we were against Arsenal. So yeah, I think we should be okay. I'm fairly confident.
All right. I'll stick with 2-2, but you made a very good argument there. I'm going to give it an extra week. I need another week of Newcastle being able to control a game for me to start to feel a bit more confidence that they're not going to invite teams late on when they're winning by a small margin. But Jake, that's going to do it for another episode of A Tad Predictable. Do you have anything you want to plug, put over, or promote before we wrap up?
You can get me on Twitter at JakeJack with 2 N's. I was obviously on the EPL Roundtable show with yourself this week. So yeah, go give that one a listen if you haven't already. But yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome stuff. Guys, from my end, go and check out all the content on EPL Index website. Their match previews, post-match reviews, player performances, all of the news that you guys could wish for. Obviously, great content on there with amazing writers like Jake Jackman himself. Of course, there's the daily podcast show, the Two Footer Podcast with Dave Hendrick, where he discusses the hottest topics in football. Also, go check out the flagship show, as Jake has mentioned, EPL Roundtable, where Kev De Vries sits down with panelists from respective EPL teams. They discuss, obviously, the reviewings of the Premier League. We do the previewing of the Premier League here. Go and follow at EPL Index on Twitter. Go and follow at A Tad Predictable on Twitter. Give us 5 stars. Write some positive comments. That stuff really does help us out on that end. A huge shout out to one of our listeners. He's at Philly Bees fan. He wrote a really, really lovely comment for us. He even messaged us with regards to his thoughts on the show and how much he was enjoying it. He says he is sort of a new fan to the podcast. Obviously, he says it's his favorite non-Brentford podcast, A Tad Predictable, which is great. So at Philly Bees fan, thank you so much for your review and for your message. Guys, go and follow them, show them some love as well. I've been Tadiwa Chinakira. You can find me on Twitter at Tad Predicts. Huge thank you to Obi Semenya. He's at John Empire SA. Jody, she's at Spursy141 for our guest intros. Our producer behind the glass, and he's going to help me with my petition with these Arsenal games and the Banquet of Burnets if they continue this goal scoring that they're on at the moment. Mr. Guy Drinkle, he's at Guy Drinkle on Twitter, and he's been Jake Jackman, as he's mentioned, at Jake Jackman with 2 N's on Twitter. And remember, Chisinga Perry, Shinoshura.
And still, Salah, sensational! Son had a goal and scored a beauty!
Oh, what a strike from Yuri Tielemans!
De Bruyne! That is what Martinelli, gorgeous! Still going up! Oh, he's done it again! And City have won the Premier League!
Sports Social Podcast Network.